The nation of Iran is absolutely going to see this as an act of war, meaning we should expect Iran to treat it like an act of war. To expect, retaliation that is not from their military in some capacity is, to me, completely bonkers, delusional, crazy. They're going to retaliate. And the Strait of Hormuz being closed is probably just one part of that, because they're going to want us to hurt. They're going to want to make us actually feel pain here. All right, let's go ahead and get into sort of just the initial address from the president last night.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just wanted to point this out. He, of course, tried to say enrichment. I stumbled on his words. I don't think that's too crazy. I mean, he's been stumbling on his words for years now. He's getting old, just like Biden. But JD shooting him a look, which is interesting. Part of me wonders if he isn't going to reference this later on. Like, when this guy's out of the picture, if JD isn't going to say, you can even look at my face back then and you'll see that I was kind of skeptical of the whole thing to begin with. I mean, he's a master manipulator, so we could expect anything like that to come out of JD.
World's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, I mean, there's, definitely some of the sort of general information out there. The whole God thing. Let's just go back for a moment here. Let's rewatch that. Think in particular, he pauses for a pretty good few seconds there, and then and God. We want to thank God.
God, I want to just
not quite far.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God, I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It seemed extremely forced. And I don't know what to attribute that to, I guess. I mean, because we know this slimy piece of shit is not actually a Christian. It serves his political goals to at least pretend to be a Christian. So that's part of why it felt so forced. The other component to it is that I don't know if there's some sort of obligation that he's been put up to by maybe one of his wealthier donors who's a Christian nationalist, or maybe something with, somebody in the Heritage Foundation. I don't know any of that. This is just very forced, very awkward. We thank God, God, that's right, that guy, and we love you too, God, also, we love you. It's just very, very bizarre, very strange. Sounds like he's trying to lay it on a little too thick. He's trying too hard. If he'd have just kept it to the pretty much the three things that he said at the end, basically, God bless Israel, God bless the Middle East, God bless America. If he'd have just left it there, it'd be less weird. But this, thank in particular God, and then, we love you, God, by the way. It's just, it's very forced, very strange. Okay. So that was what Trump said last night. Very short address. He did not take any questions. And of course, I mean, I think they wanted that to hit with a certain amount of gravitas. I think that what they were wanting to do is they were wanting to create like an Obama moment where Obama, was able to walk down that same, go through those same doors, walk down that same hallway to announce that we had successfully taken out bin Laden. I think they wanted that type of gravitas, and I don't think they got that at all. It seemed very low energy, and again, very forced, very uninspired. To have the vice president, the secretary of state, and the secretary of defense flank him like that is very strange. I mean, typically, I believe the president usually walks down that hallway alone, so I don't know why they were all there to accompany him. I thought that was very weird. So, I don't know. But this is, I don't know how much we may not get through all of this, or we may kind of skip around just depending on what it goes to. But this is Hegseth's briefing at the Pentagon this morning. So I wanted to see what this shows. I have only seen part of this, some portions of this. I haven't seen all of it. So we will have to find out what Keg's Breath said about it.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Last night, on President Trump's orders, U.S. Central Command conducted a precision strike in the middle of the night against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming success. The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program. But it's worth noting the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people.
Something I just wanted to point out here. Now, I'm not suggesting that we take their word over the word of our own government, but apparently Iran's Russian, I almost said Russian TV, that RT, Russia Today, the sort of Iranian equivalent, their state media, has said that they had already apparently relocated the majority of their nuclear assets in preparation for these three sites to have been struck. I mean, we're not going to know. Our government is saying that their nuclear facilities have been devastated. Iran is saying like, nah, it's honestly, everything's totally fine. And they've already closed the Strait of Hormuz, which is where a good portion of the U.S. oil, or sorry, of the global oil supply comes through. So definitely expect some gas prices to increase in the next week or two as a result of this. It's gonna have a rocky few months at the minimum as a result of this, you guys. And there's a strong chance, there's a much stronger chance that this leads to potentially a hot war with Iran. Where I kind of hope that they can't get Congress to authorize it. I kind of hope that's what we see, is that we see Congress just be like, they peel off enough Republican votes to just be like, nah, even if they're striking us back, you don't get to just declare war because you attacked first. Like, I would like to see that, but I don't know that that's what's going to happen. I feel like we're going to get rather the opposite effect, where Republicans are in lockstep with Trump and they peel off a few Democrats who are like, yeah, they shouldn't attack us just because we attacked them, whatever, just weak ass Democrats that need to go away. We'll see what happens there, but it sounds like it's right now we're saying we devastated their nuclear facilities. Maybe we did. They're saying, we moved that stuff, so it's actually kind of fine. And we'll find out more in the next probably handful of weeks to months.
For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump. The operation President Trump planned was bold, and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen. And the U.S. military, we can back it up. The most powerful military the world has ever known. No other country on planet Earth could have conducted the operation that the chairman is going to outline this morning. Not even close. Just like Soleimani found out in the first term, Iran found out when POTUS says 60 days that he seeks peace and negotiation, he means 60 days of peace and negotiation. Otherwise, that nuclear program, that nuclear capability will not exist. He meant it. This is not the previous administration. The President Trump said no nukes. He seeks peace, and Iran should take that path. He sent out a truth last night saying this: any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Signed, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Iran would be smart to heed those words.
I just find it funny that they would just print out a single truth from Truth Social, just Control P and just print that shit. That's fucking weird as hell. Because he showed it for just a second there, and you could see it was just the truth post. I have this word from the president. It's like, oh my god, what weird times we're in. I think this gamble on no retaliation from Iran on this is just a foolish assumption. Thinking that we can engage in what is quite literally an act of war, because again, it's not like we were targeting some terrorist insurgency within Iran, like, you know, previous U.S. strikes have done so in Yemen against like Hezbollah, and previous strikes against ISIL and ISIS, you know, in other parts of the world, strikes in Libya against I can't remember the name of the insurgency that there during Obama's term, but again, in all of these other examples where presidents have issued strike orders without congressional approval, you're talking about it targeting a specific group. It is not against a nation or a sovereign nation or an official state-owned program or state-owned commission from whoever it is that we're attacking. And this defense, I think it was JD Vance said today, we might look that video up. I mean, holy fuck, I think it was pretty quick, but I heard it was JD Vance, I believe, that said, we're not at war with Iran, we're at war with Iran's nuclear program, which is just insane to me. I think, you know, would the United States have accepted that if Al-Qaeda, after the attacks of 9/11, if Al-Qaeda had said, oh, no, we're not at war with the United States, we're at war with the United States trade commissions and trade policy. Okay, because you attacked the World Trade Center? Or, you know, they likewise, they could have said, we're at war with the United States military industrial complex, you know, attacking the Pentagon. It's like, I mean, we without a question, we would have said, nah, that's bullshit. You're at war with us because you attacked this country. I mean, this is a similar situation. The nation of Iran is absolutely going to see this as an act of war, meaning we should expect Iran to treat it like an act of war, and to expect non-military retaliation, or to expect, you know, retaliation that is not from their military in some capacity, is to me completely bonkers, delusional, crazy. They're going to retaliate. And the Strait of Hormuz being closed is probably just one part of that, because they're going to want us to hurt. They're going to want to make us actually feel pain here.
He's said it before, and he means it. I want to give recognition to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Joint Staff, General Eric Kurilla at CENTCOM, who did a phenomenal job, he and his staff, all of CENTCOM. Policy, across the board, this was a joint effort, and across the Pentagon effort. I want to recognize the pilots who flew those bombers, who flew those fighters, who flew those refuelers, warriors. I want to recognize the sailors on those destroyers, in those subs, on those carriers, warriors, all of them. I want to recognize our soldiers doing air defense, base defense, QRF, warriors, all of them. Every American involved in this operation performed flawlessly. And I want to give recognition to our allies in Israel as well. This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called. It took a great deal of precision. It involved misdirection and the highest of operational security. Our B-2s went in and out of downtown Tehran.
So we're not going to get a signal chat on this later. Is that right, Petey boy? Come on, Whiskey Leaks. Give us another signal chat, I beg you.
Not Tehran, excuse me, of these nuclear sites, in and out and back without the world knowing at all. In that way, it was historic. A strike that included the longest B-2 Spirit bomber mission since 2001 and the first operational employment of the MOP, a massive ordnance penetrator. The mission demonstrated to the world the level of joint and allied integration that speak to the strength of our alliance and our joint forces. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war, but let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word. I want to give congratulations to our Commander-in-Chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout, and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America. And we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection. I turn it over now to the chairman for specifics.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for recognizing all of our folks.
Well, maybe we'll see what Dan Kane has here to say. Is this mostly? Looks like Pete does speak again at some point. He answers a question. Okay, well, maybe we'll go to that question. I want to see what this chart shows. All right,
On the side as I walk you through some of the operational details. At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders here in Washington and
not in signal. They're running a lot of cover for making sure that we know all this stuff was secret. That's kind of interesting that they're emphasizing that so much. I think the Hegseth whiskey leaks bullshit. I think all that stuff has kind of has got them a little scared.
In Tampa. The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. Throughout the 18-hour flight into the target area, the aircraft completed multiple in-flight refuelings. Once over land, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications. This type of integration is exactly what our joint force does better than anyone else in the world. At approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night, and just prior to the strike package entering Iran, a U.S. submarine in the Central Command Area of Responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key.
We launched our I was trying to figure that out earlier, is how our Tomahawks were launched, because I think Tomahawks can be launched from aircraft carriers as well, or maybe like destroyers or something like that. I don't I guess I hadn't considered submarines, so that's how we launched the Tomahawks, was from sub. Interesting.
Surface infrastructure targets at Esfahan. As the Operation Midnight Hammer strike package.
Okay, let's go to whatever question Keg's breath here takes. Let's see. So he's talking now.
And our deployed service member in our thoughts.
So is regime change off the table, Mr. Secretary? And to the chairman, you said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing, but do you believe that some nuclear capability in Iran remains?
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Thanks for your question. I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there. But thanks for the question.
Green. No, behind you.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, can you tell me, was there a particular moment when the president decided to pull the trigger on this operation where he said, now, rather than being, something in the holster, now we're going to pull the trigger on it?
I would just say, having the opportunity to witness his leadership, he was fully committed to the peace process, wanted a negotiated outcome, gave Iran every single opportunity, and unfortunately was met by stonewalling, which is why he gave them plenty of time to continue to come to the table and give up enrichment, give up the nuclear program.
I'd love to see some of those communications, just gonna say, because I mean, with the amount of lies that come out of this administration, I don't feel comfortable taking anything that they say at their word, even if it sounds plausibly true. I want to see the chat logs or the communicate. How was this even communicated? Like, give us a transcript if it was a phone call or radio communications. Like, what the fuck?
But there was I won't say the particular moment. There was certainly a moment in time where he realized that it had to be a certain action taken in order to minimize the threat to us and our troops. Yeah.
General, you say that General Kurilla increased force protection in Iraq, Syria, and Gulf in those areas. Were they given any advance warning the attacks were coming? And also, Mr. Secretary, when were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
So they were given no advance warning?
No, sir.
In congressional?
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
After the attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter. Yes.
I don't think that's what the Constitution says.
Questions. Do you believe you completely destroyed Iranian nuclear program? And how about Iranian ballistic missiles? Your ally as Israel always saying that is biggest threat. And second question is very important. What will be your next step if Iran or militias under Iranian influence in the region attack U.S. interests or allies in the region?
And you can chime in on this too, Mr. Chairman. The battle damage assessment is ongoing, but our initial assessment, as the chairman said, is that all of our precision munitions struck where we wanted them to strike and had the desired effect. Which means especially in Fordo, which was the primary target here, we believe we achieved destruction of capabilities there. Ultimately, wherever it may be,
we'll have to
whether
see.
It's in Iraq or Syria or bases in the Gulf, as the president said, it would be, as the chairman said, it would be a very bad idea for Iran or its proxies to attempt to attack American forces. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Regarding retaliations, Iran and North Korea are cooperating on nuclear and missile development. Do you think there is a possibility that Iran, North Korea, and the other forces, such as China, will join forces to retaliate against the United States?
Could happen.
Well, unfortunately, because of the policies under the previous administration, we drove those countries together, and
this makes me so fucking mad, dude. Because if what he's saying is true, he would be able to specify how it is true. I don't think you could give him 10 minutes for him to give you a real factual example of how Joe fucking Biden helped bring Iran, China, and North Korea together. What in the fuck does that mean, even? However, between Donald Trump signing the Abraham Accords, which caused a lot of increased instability and dipping U.S. favorability in the Middle East, with the Abraham Accords, that kind of helped catalyze this. That helped catalyze what happened on October 7th, 2023, with Hamas attacking Israel, which has led to that war. So basically, Trump shares a big part of the responsibility behind the Hamas attack for October 7th and the attacks from Israel since then. And like this nuclear deal, none of this would have happened if we had just maintained the nuclear deal that we had. There were thousands of inspections, and I read that there were somewhere as many as 10 snap inspections, I think a week or a day, something like that, where Iran was complying with the Obama nuclear agreement. He was complying, or they were complying. They were not enriching uranium above at least above a very low percentage. I think they had some 30% enriched uranium, which you need to enrich it to 90% for it to be volatile enough to be put into nuclear weapons. And only after Trump got rid of that agreement in 2018 did Iran surpass the 60% mark and approach 90. So much of what's happened is literally at the hands of Donald Trump. Stuff that he did to create this situation. And Pete, without fucking any tangible justification, just blames the previous administration. Let's see what else he's gonna say, but I bet it's either bullshit or he's just gonna say, well, because the previous administration was bad, blah 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 blah, and not again explain how they created or caused this situation.
Ultimately, that creates a challenging environment. For this particular operation, the focus is on Iran
against the United States.
Well, unfortunately, because of the policies under the previous administration, we drove those countries together, and ultimately that creates a challenging environment. For this particular operation, the focus is on Iran and Iranian nuclear capabilities. That's our focus here, is to not just say that they can't have, but President Trump has said from over 20 years, frankly, Iran cannot have a nuclear.
So he basically dodges the question. So that tells me that he's either not worried about or not considering, ooh, what if North Korea and fucking China decide to aid in Iran's retaliation against the United States? Like, you guys don't even think that's a thing to worry about. And it's either because they don't have to worry because they're going to have that doomsday plane that they can get in. I would call that I'd say that's another name for a golden fucking parachute. Or they just don't think they're going to get a retaliation out of this. They think this is some art of the deal shit. I don't think they're going to be right about that.
Nuclear weapon. And ultimately, he decided this is the moment, given their stonewalling, when direct military action had to be taken to prevent that from happening. Yes.
Thank you very much. General Kane, I understand OPSEC. I respect OPSEC. Can you say at all what security procedures are being taken to protect U.S. troops in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East?
Good question.
And Secretary Hegseth, as a global war on terrorism veteran, what do you say to veterans who may be concerned the U.S. is getting into another open-ended war in the Middle East over weapons of mass destruction?
I like these questions.
Thanks, sir, for the question. I won't comment on what force protection measures are being taken in the region. What I will say is we're being proactive and not reactive. And being very thoughtful about ensuring that we do all that we can to protect our forces out there.
And I would just say, as the president has directed and made clear, this is most certainly not open-ended. It doesn't mean it limits our ability to respond. We will respond if necessary. The most powerful military in the world is postured and prepared to defend our people. But what the president gave us, as I said, was a focused, powerful, and clear mission on the destruction of Iranian nuclear capability.
So I see. The strategy is that we're going to escalate to the point where we are ourselves committing a massive act of war against the nation of Iran. But we are confident that they are not going to engage in military retaliation of their own. And that will bring about peace. Folks, we're going to see within a matter of weeks how this is going to shake out. But for him to say, no, this is not open-ended, it's like, you guys don't get to decide that. You know that, right? You don't get to fucking decide that. You guys shouldn't have been able to decide to do the attack to begin with, but I mean, this is all the most lawless administration that's ever existed. They don't care about what the Constitution says or what any sort of standing law says. Is if they feel it gets in the way of the executive's mission, they don't give a fuck. So, but they seem to think that they have so much, you know, the Constitution can't control them, but they think that they are capable of controlling the actions of the reaction of another nation. Fucking just completely bonkers, insane.
Abilities. Those were the targets. That's what was struck. That what was overwhelming. That's what was.
Also, what is he wearing here? What is he wearing? Is this like one of those bracelets that like, is this like a copperware thing or whatever the fuck that shit's called?
It's overwhelming. That's what the Iranian regime needs to understand. As the president put out last night, he wants peace. There needs to be a negotiated settlement here. We ultimately demonstrated that Iran cannot have a nuclear capability. That is a very clear mission set on this operation. Yes, hold on. Yes, right there.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Question for the Secretary and the Chairman. How was this strike coordinated with the Israelis on a strategic level, militarily, and on a tactical level? Was there any direct Israeli military?
I don't really care about that so much. That sort of like sounds to me like, and how are we and Israel so awesome together? Can you talk about how awesome we are together?
Measures, but do you anticipate at least having to bring in about the reaction?
As the Secretary said, it was a U.S. strike. We made sure we were not in the same piece of airspace and sky. Aside from that, that was the extent of it.
We'll take a couple more. Yeah, right there.
Question to the Secretary first. Are you concerned whatsoever now about the reaction from U.S. allies given the strike, particularly those in the Gulf? And to the Chairman, if I may,
fair question.
I understand you don't want to speak to specific assets and force protection measures, but do you anticipate at least having to bring in any further assets from other theaters to aid in force protection over the coming days?
We certainly understand the challenges of allies in the region, and we have been respectful and in working in collaboration with them as it pertains to basing and sensitivities there. Ultimately, they've got a lot of assets and people in those locations also where American troops are co-located. So that's a consideration of ours. We've been in close consultation with them, and we appreciate the support that we have got.
Thanks for the question on sort of the global picture. And as you know, that's one of my jobs, is to look globally at the entire range of challenges. We are always carefully considering our force posture around the world and then offering options to the Secretary and to the President. I won't comment on any future things, but the American people should know that we carefully consider those moves around the world and try to modulate as needed our force structure in the region.
Absolutely. Yeah, right here.
Thank you. What communications are being sent to the Iranians right now, and is there any possibility of diplomacy now or in the coming days?
I can only confirm that there are both public and private messages being directly delivered to the Iranians in multiple channels, giving them every opportunity to come to the table. They understand.
Do those communications include Truth Social? Like,
precisely what the American position is, precisely what steps they can take to allow for peace, and we hope they do so. Yes.
The president may not want an open-ended conflict. The Iranians may disagree. Are you prepared for a protracted war?
Fuck yeah.
Well, anything can happen in conflict. We acknowledge that. But the scope of this was intentionally limited. That's the message that we're sending. With the capabilities of the American military, nearly unlimited. So Iran, in that sense, has a choice. But we've made it very clear to them, this is nuclear sites, this is nuclear capabilities, this is the line that the president set, and we set that back. Now is the time to come forward for peace. But I think one of the takeaways from this as well is the unprecedented level of ongoing cooperation. I can't speak highly enough of the chairman and his staff and General Kurilla in CENTCOM, what they've done to look around the corner, to pre-position, to understand how an operation like this comes together. The scope and scale of what occurred last night would take the breath away of almost any.
Mr. Secretary, concerning.
More question. Yes, right there.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Concerning the justification for these strikes, in March, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released their threat assessment, concluding, quote, Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear programs he suspended in 2003, unquote. So what new intelligence does the U.S. have since then that the Iranians have changed their position on nuclear weapons?
This guy looks like he's like 19. Holy shit.
And does this new intelligence come from U.S. sources and methods, or are we getting this information
Another
from
good
other
follow-up.
countries?
Hell yes.
Well, I would just simply say that the president's made it very clear. He's looked at all of this, all of the intelligence, all of the information, and come to the conclusion that the Iranian nuclear program is a threat. And
That's
was
a
willing
dodge,
to take
ladies and gentlemen.
this precision operation to neutralize that threat in order to advance American national interests, reduce the Iranian nuclear program, and obviously collective self-defense of ourselves and our allies. So he looked at all of it, understood the nature of the threat, and took bold action I think the American people would expect in a commander-in-chief. That's all we've got. Thank you very much.
Total fucking dodge. What did this kid ask him again?
Unquote. So what new intelligence does the U.S. have since then that the Iranians have changed their position on nuclear weapons? And does this new intelligence come from U.S. sources and methods, or are we getting this information from other countries?
He answered none of that. Oh my God.
I would just simply say that the president's made it very clear. He's looked at all of this, all of the intelligence, all of the information, and come to the conclusion that the Iranian nuclear program is a threat.
So we don't know if this was U.S.-based intelligence or if it was Israeli intelligence. Did we get this intel from a guy in a back alley? I don't fucking know. We don't know because Pete isn't gonna say that. Also, you notice all the mouth gesturing he's doing. He's licking his lips and stuff. I think he needs a drink.
And was willing to take this precision operation to
I mean, it was 8 a.m. It's past his happy hour, ladies and gentlemen.
Neutralize that threat in order to advance American national interests, reduce the Iranian nuclear program, and obviously collective self-defense of ourselves and our allies. So he looked at all of it, understood the nature of the threat, and took bold action I think the American people.
That kid sees 1,000% through that answer. That answer was total bullshit. Great question asked by this kid. Also, I wanted to take a moment to note that I think there were a bunch of women in that room, and I think Pete only took a question from a single woman. So here was the first question.
Was not and has not been.
You said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing, but do you believe that some nuclear capability
So white guy.
Iran remain?
So this is the woman he took the question from. He takes a question from this kid. Another white guy. Wow, Pete, you've got a favorite. You've got a favorite that you like asking you questions. This guy doesn't appear to be
Iranian,
white, but I don't remember that question. But that's interesting. It's interesting. The guy with the questionable, maybe white supremacist tattoo, maybe engaging in more white supremacy. I don't know. All right, this was